What if I told you the quietest member of the Trump family just did something no one saw coming? Barron Trump, often overshadowed by his father's towering presence and political legacy, stepped up to the podium and left everyone speechless. His voice was strong, his words thoughtful, and his presence commanding. In that moment, he wasn't just the youngest son of a former president. He was his own person, mature beyond his years. The crowd, initially filled with skepticism, was captivated by his unexpected poise. Even seasoned political analysts were stunned. This wasn't a rehearsed act. It was raw, authentic, and unforgettable. What did he say that changed the room's atmosphere? And how did he prove that sometimes the quietest voices have the most to say? Stay with us as we uncover the surprising power of Barron Trump's historic moment. The anticipation in the room was palpable. Rows upon rows of spectators, journalists, political analysts, and curious onlookers filled the grand hall, their conversations a low hum of speculation. Cameras stood poised, their lenses gleaming under the bright stage lights, ready to capture every second of what was about to unfold. This wasn't just another political event. It was a moment that carried weight, shrouded in curiosity, and, for some, skepticism. Barron Trump, now taller than most adults, walked confidently toward the podium. His quiet presence, long familiar in photographs and fleeting public appearances, had always been enigmatic. There was an air of mystery about him, a young man growing up under the intense glare of the world's spotlight, yet rarely speaking a word. Today that silence was about to be broken. As he approached the microphone, the room seemed to hold its breath. The lights illuminated his face, highlighting the composure etched into his features. He wore a simple but elegant suit, a reflection of his understated yet refined demeanor. There were no grand gestures, no theatrics, just a young man ready to speak his truth. For a moment, there was only silence, the kind that stretches long enough to make even the most seasoned public speakers uneasy. But Barron stood unfazed, his posture steady, his expression calm. And then he spoke. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice deeper and more assured than many had expected. The warmth in his tone immediately disarmed the room. It wasn't the voice of a nervous teenager. It was the voice of someone who had carefully thought about what he wanted to say. He acknowledged the obvious right away. "Most of you know me as someone who stands in the background," he said with a slight, self-deprecating smile. "I've always preferred listening to speaking. But today, I feel it's important to share my perspective, not as a member of my family, but as myself." That simple declaration set the tone for what was to come. There was no attempt to mimic the polished rhetoric of seasoned politicians. Barron's words were honest, thoughtful, and sincere. He spoke about the challenges of growing up in the public eye, the lessons he had learned from observing both triumphs and failures, and the importance of listening, a quality often overlooked in today's fast-paced, opinion-driven world. As he continued, the atmosphere in the room began to shift. The initial skepticism that had clouded many faces gave way to genuine interest. People leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the authenticity of his message. Even the journalists, pens poised for criticism, found themselves nodding in agreement. Barron's speech wasn't about grand promises or political agendas. It was about values, respect, understanding, and the courage to be true to oneself. He spoke of the importance of resilience in the face of adversity, a lesson he had learned firsthand. "It's not about how many times you're seen," he said, "but about what you stand for when you do step forward." There was a moment when he paused, looking out at the audience with a thoughtful gaze. "I know that many of you have opinions about my family," he acknowledged openly. "And that's okay. But today isn't about politics. It's about finding common ground and understanding each other as people. The sincerity in his words struck a chord. The room, filled with individuals from diverse backgrounds and beliefs, found itself united by the simple truth he was sharing, that humanity transcends division. As Barron continued, his composure never wavered. His gestures were minimal but purposeful, emphasizing key points without becoming theatrical. There was a quiet strength in his presence, a maturity that belied his age. It was clear that this wasn't a rehearsed performance. It was a genuine expression of who he was. The audience was no longer just listening. They were connecting. Parents saw in Barron a reflection of their own children. Young, often underestimated, but brimming with potential. Young viewers watching online found inspiration in his ability to stand tall, despite the immense pressure. Even those who had long dismissed the Trump name couldn't help but acknowledge the maturity and grace he displayed. By the time he reached the conclusion of his speech, the atmosphere in the room had transformed. What had begun as a moment shrouded in skepticism had become one of unity and respect. The applause that erupted was thunderous, not out of obligation, but from a place of sincere appreciation. Barron Trump had done something remarkable. He had stepped out of the shadows and into the spotlight with courage, dignity, and a voice that demanded to be heard, not because of his last name, but because of the substance he brought to the table. As he walked off the stage, there was a fleeting moment where he glanced back at the audience, a hint of a smile on his face. It was as if he knew this was just the beginning, not just for him, but for a narrative that had long been waiting to change. This moment was more than just a speech. It was a testament to the power of unexpected voices. It reminded everyone present that sometimes greatness emerges quietly, waiting for the right moment to step forward and leave us all in awe. The atmosphere in the grand hall was electric, thick with anticipation. Rows of seats stretched endlessly, filled with faces both curious and skeptical. Reporters clutched their notepads, pens poised, ready to capture every second. Bright lights illuminated the stage, casting long shadows across the gleaming wooden floor. The hum of whispers filled the room as people speculated. What would Barron say? Could he possibly command the attention of this audience? In the front row sat dignitaries, political figures, and familiar faces from media circles. Their expressions ranged from polite interest to subtle disbelief. After all, Barron had always been the quiet one, content to observe from the sidelines. What could he possibly have to say today that would matter? But as Barron appeared, his tall frame cutting a commanding figure against the backdrop, the room fell silent. He walked with steady confidence. No flash, no theatrics, just purpose. His presence alone was enough to shift the energy in the room. There was something undeniable about him, an air of maturity beyond his years. He stood at the podium, adjusting the microphone with a calmness that belied the gravity of the moment. The audience held its collective breath. Barron's gaze swept across the crowd, not with intimidation but with quiet assurance. His expression was thoughtful, his demeanor poised. And then, with a voice deeper and more resonant than expected, he spoke. "Thank you for being here," he began simply. There was no grand opening statement, no dramatic gesture, just sincerity. But that was enough. The room, initially filled with doubt, leaned in closer. Barron's tone was calm, yet compelling, a voice that invited listening rather than demanded it. He acknowledged the obvious. "I know many of you don't know much about me," he said with a faint smile. "And that's okay. I've always believed that actions speak louder than words." The honesty in his words disarmed the audience. There was no pretense, just a young man speaking his truth. As Barron spoke, the initial tension in the room began to dissipate. People who had come prepared to dismiss him found themselves captivated. His message wasn't about politics or agendas. It was about values, respect, and resilience. He spoke of the importance of staying true to oneself in a world that often sought to define you before you could define yourself. The hall, once filled with skepticism, now resonated with admiration. Barron Trump had taken the stage, not as a politician or a symbol of his family name, but as an individual with a voice worth hearing. And as the applause began to build, one thing was clear. He had left an indelible mark, proving that sometimes the quietest voices carry the most profound messages. Social media was ablaze within minutes. Tweets poured in, ranging from supportive to skeptical. Did Barron Trump just outshine every political speech this year? Who saw that coming? One user posted, quickly gaining thousands of likes. Others expressed genuine surprise. He's grown up before our eyes, and now he's proving he's more than just a last name. But not everyone was convinced. Critics questioned whether his speech had been carefully crafted by professionals or whether it was a strategic move by the family. Nice words, but is he ready for public life? One commentator asked on a popular news show. Despite the skepticism, even the harshest voices couldn't deny that Barron had captured the nation's attention. Supporters rallied around him, admiring his maturity and composure. It takes courage to step into that spotlight. One social media post read, "He didn't just survive it, he owned it." Parents in particular resonated with his message about staying true to oneself. "As a mom, I'm impressed," a Facebook comment stated. He's showing young people that it's okay to find your own voice. Comparisons were quickly drawn between Barron and other young public figures. Some likened his poise to that of Greta Thunberg, who had also captured global attention at a young age. Others mentioned Malala Yousafzai, whose courage and maturity had inspired millions. While their causes and circumstances were vastly different, the common thread was undeniable. Young voices making an impact in unexpected ways. Even seasoned journalists, many of whom had followed the Trump family for years, were taken aback. Barron Trump's speech was a turning point, one prominent analyst admitted on air. He showed a level of thoughtfulness and composure that few could have predicted. In the days that followed, interviews with attendees revealed a mix of admiration and curiosity. One political strategist remarked, "It wasn't just what he said, but how he said it." There was sincerity in his tone, a genuine desire to connect. Another attendee noted, "He didn't try to be anyone but himself, and that's rare in this age of polished speeches." Barron's speech had not only sparked conversations about his own potential, but also about the importance of listening to younger voices. It was a reminder that wisdom doesn't always come with age. Sometimes it comes from observation, reflection, and the courage to speak up when it matters most. As the world continued to react, one thing was clear. Barron Trump had stepped out of the shadows and into a spotlight of his own making. And whether people agreed with him or not, they were undeniably listening. As the applause faded and Barron Trump left the stage, one thing was crystal clear. This was more than just a speech. It was a turning point, a moment that transcended mere public appearances. People weren't just talking about what he said, they were grappling with what it symbolized. First and foremost, Barron's speech marked the rise of a new voice. One that didn't rely on the bombastic style often associated with the Trump family. Instead, it carried the weight of thoughtful reflection, resonating with those who craved sincerity in a world dominated by noise. His calm, collected demeanor spoke volumes, especially in an era where heated debates and shouting matches often overshadow meaningful discourse. For many young people watching, Barron became a symbol of stepping into one's own power. His speech wasn't just about who he is, but about who he could become. He demonstrated that it's never too early to start shaping your narrative, to stand up and share your perspective, no matter how daunting the stage may seem. Parents across the nation found themselves reflecting on their own children. What lessons could they draw from this moment? Many saw Barron's courage as a reminder to encourage their kids to find their voices and speak with confidence. One mother shared on social media, "Watching Barron gave me chills. He reminded me that our children are capable of so much more than we often give them credit for." Political commentators, too, acknowledged the historical weight of this moment. Not because of any grand policy statements, Barron didn't make any, but because of what his presence represented. One analyst remarked, "This wasn't just the emergence of a Trump family member. It was the emergence of a young leader in his own right." The speech also raised questions about generational shifts in leadership. Was this a glimpse of the next generation of influencers, thinkers, and leaders? Barron's ability to hold a room's attention without theatrics suggested a maturity and authenticity that many found refreshing. He didn't try to be anyone but himself, and in doing so, he captured hearts and minds. Beyond the immediate reactions, there's a broader message to be taken from Barron's historic moment. It's a reminder that leadership isn't always about age, experience, or titles. Sometimes it's about showing up, speaking from the heart, and being unafraid to share your perspective. As discussions continued in the media and online, one sentiment became increasingly clear. This was just the beginning for Barron Trump. His journey had only just started, but he had already made a mark that would be remembered. And as people looked to the future, they couldn't help but wonder, what will he do next? As conversations about Barron Trump's historic speech continued to ripple across media outlets and dinner tables alike, many couldn't help but reflect on how far he's come. For years, Barron was a figure of quiet mystery, always present but never speaking, a calm presence amidst the whirlwind that surrounded his family. From the early days when he stood beside his father during key public moments, Barron's reserved demeanor stood in stark contrast to the spotlight-loving nature of other family members. While the world watched his every step, he seemed content to blend into the background. The media's fascination with him only grew as he matured. But Barron never gave in to the temptation of public attention. Unlike many kids born into famous families, Barron managed to maintain a low profile despite living in one of the most scrutinized households in the world. His appearances were rare, limited to ceremonial events and a few glimpses on social media. Even then, his thoughtful, composed expression set him apart. He wasn't just the youngest Trump. He was a symbol of quiet resilience. But this speech, this moment, marked a turning point. It was as if years of silent observation had culminated in a voice that was ready to be heard. Those who had dismissed Barron as just another figure in the Trump dynasty were now seeing him in a new light. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Insiders close to the family have shared that Barron is fiercely independent and thoughtful. He's someone who reads widely, asks insightful questions, and prefers deep conversations over surface-level chatter. Those qualities were evident in his speech, a speech that was not only polished, but also authentic. It's worth noting how this evolution mirrors the journey many young people face. The path from adolescence to young adulthood is filled with moments of uncertainty and growth. Barron's decision to finally step into the public eye on his own terms is a testament to the importance of timing and self-assurance. He didn't speak because he was expected to. He spoke because he was ready. Parents watching his speech with their own children couldn't help but draw inspiration from this journey. One father shared on social media, "Barron reminded me that it's okay to let kids find their own way. They'll surprise you when the time is right." The sentiment was echoed by educators and youth advocates who saw Barron as a role model for staying true to oneself. The speech also highlighted a shift in how the public perceives young voices. Barron's poise and maturity challenged preconceived notions about his generation. He wasn't just speaking for himself. He was representing countless young people who are ready to contribute meaningfully to conversations that matter. As Barron left the stage that day, the applause wasn't just for what he had said, it was for the journey that had led him there. A journey marked by observation, reflection, and finally, expression. In a world that often demands instant success, Barron's story is a reminder that growth takes time and that true impact comes when you speak from the heart. People are now asking what's next for Barron Trump. Will he continue to make public appearances? Will he use his voice to advocate for causes he believes in? Whatever path he chooses, one thing is certain. The world will be watching, not with skepticism, but with genuine interest. Barron's evolution isn't just a personal story. It's a testament to the power of authenticity and the courage to step into the spotlight when you're truly ready. His journey from a silent observer to a compelling speaker offers lessons for all of us, regardless of age or background. And so, as the conversations continue and headlines buzz with analysis, one thing remains clear. Barron Trump's moment wasn't just about a speech. It was about a young man coming into his own and showing the world that sometimes the quietest voices have the most profound things to say. As conversations continue about Barron Trump's remarkable speech, one undeniable truth stands out. Sometimes, the most unexpected voices leave the deepest impact. Barron's journey from a quiet, reserved observer to a poised and thoughtful speaker is a testament to the power of finding one's voice at the right time. Reflecting on his speech, it's clear that leadership and maturity aren't always about age or experience. Sometimes, they come from authenticity, observation, and the courage to speak up when it matters most. Barron didn't just deliver words that resonated. He represented the emergence of a new generation willing to step forward and be heard. His calm demeanor and thoughtful reflections reminded everyone watching that there is strength in composure. He challenged the perception of what young voices are capable of achieving and showed that sincerity can hold more power than theatrics. For parents, educators, and young individuals alike, Barron's moment on that stage offered valuable lessons: the importance of timing, authenticity, and self-assurance. One parent shared, "It's not just about speaking. It's about speaking when you have something meaningful to say." As the world wonders what's next for Barron Trump, the takeaway from his speech remains clear. Maturity and leadership can come from unexpected places. His journey serves as a reminder to us all that sometimes the quietest observers become the most impactful voices. And now, I leave you with a question. Could Barron Trump be a future voice of reason in modern politics? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more engaging stories and insightful content. Don't forget to visit our channel regularly for videos that keep you informed and inspired. Thank you for watching.